now listening to the Region 10 Report with your host, Suzanne Posel from OccupyCorporatism.com, where the alternative media gets their news. This show will expose the elite domination plan, disinfo agents, propaganda, corporate control, and the UN plan to strip the world of its freedom and the U.S. of its Constitution. This is the Region 10 Report with Suzanne Posel, bringing you the real truth behind the news.
Good evening, folks. Thank you for joining us tonight on the Region 10 Report. This is episode number 9. The Region 10 Report is broadcast on American Freedom Radio, 11 to midnight Central, on AM stations all across the globe, as well as Prepper Podcast Network, UCY.TV, iTunes podcast downloads. Just type in the Region 10 Report, Spreaker, Shoutcast, and Blog Talk Radio. You can listen to all of our previous episodes at radio.occupycorporatism.com. New articles are posted daily on our website, occupycorporatism.com. You can follow us on Facebook, Twitter, or sign up for our RSS feed to get the latest news from occupycorporatism.com. I'm your host, Suzanne Posel. My co-host, David Posel, is with me. And tonight, we are going to talk about the fiscal cliff. We're going to talk about the dollar bubble and what this actually means and what is really going on. So tonight, I'd like to go ahead and start with how the Federal Reserve and the U.S. Treasury are creating a dollar bubble. While Obama and House Speaker John Boehner wants us to focus on the fiscal cliff, the automatic tax hikes, and spending cuts, what's really going on is the technocrats are broke. The Federal Reserve is broke, as well as all of its tentacles like Goldman Sachs, J.P. Morgan, Bank of America, Wells Fargo, Citigroup, all the names that we know and love. And they have this problem. They have tons of fiat floating around. They want to make sure that they keep this propped up just long enough so that we can be transitioned into a new credit-based type of currency, digital currency. So we're going to discuss how all of this works. I want everyone to understand that when we're worried about whether or not these two puppets get together and make a decision by January 1st to avert falling over the fiscal cliff, that's all theater. Everyone listening to my voice, I hope that you understand the term duopoly. I hope that you understand that everybody who has been elected has been selected. And everyone who's sitting there on Capitol Hill has been bought and paid for by the global elite, by the technocrats, by the people who run the world, the people who supply the world's money. It doesn't matter how many petitions you sign online. It doesn't matter how many protests that you go out and hold up signs and the Fed, audit the Fed. It doesn't matter. The only way that we're going to, and I want to talk about solutions before the end of the show, but the only way that we're going to stop them is to stop complying with the system. And I say this over and over and over again, but in this episode it's extremely important. And before we end this episode, I will explain to you how we can stop complying with the system. So we've got our Congress, House Speaker Boehner and Obama coming together and creating a fake reality, like they're fighting, like they can't come to a resolution. Obama wants this, Boehner wants that. Obama's not going to give, Boehner is trying to work for the people. Yada, yada, yada. It doesn't matter. What's really going on? Pay attention to Timothy Geithner. He used to work for the New York Fed. Now he's Secretary of the U.S. Treasury. He warned earlier this year that the statutory debt limit would be reached by December 31st, 2012, and that without taking certain extraordinary measures, authorized by law to temporarily postpone the date of the United States, reach that debt ceiling, that we would have a huge problem. So Obama is saying, hey, why don't we raise the debt ceiling? Geithner's saying, hey, I got this really great idea from Bernanke. Why don't we just have an infinite ceiling? Why don't we just get rid of the ceiling? We don't need it. You guys can keep borrowing. And everybody starts freaking out because they think that Bernanke's turning on a press and printing out money somewhere. And that's not what this is about. They have to prop up the system. And we know that they've been propping up the system since 2008 because we allowed the technocrats to run wild. Glass-Steagall was removed, and they just went crazy. They started bundling up mortgages and credit card debt and student loans and repackaging them, and they crashed the system. And people say, well, why would they crash the system? Because the guy who is in charge of the system doesn't care whether or not it's crashing. And in order to crash this current system that we have with our fiat-based currency and introduce a new digital credit-based currency, you have to crash the system. It makes sense. When you restructure a corporation, when you're in Chapter 13 or Chapter 11, and you need to restructure your corporation because it's not working, you're not making any profit, you're not exactly shutting the doors. You're just reorganizing so that when you reopen your doors, you can gain profit. Well, since all of our countries, all of our cities, all of our towns, all of our states are incorporated, we're talking about a president who's actually the head of a corporation. And we're also talking about Spain and Greece being some public victims because the Corporation of Spain and the Corporation of Greece is under what any corporation would do when they're in Chapter 11 or Chapter 13. They're restructuring. Now, when you have a country doing that, you have to instill austerity measures. Austerity is not meant to make sure that the population is completely dependent on the government, because the technocrats want to make money. They want to keep it flowing. They don't want you on welfare forever, but they do want you to go along with their plan. And so if they have to make you broke, and they have to destroy the middle class in order to do it, and they have to take your home, just to ensure that you go along with their plan, they'll do it, because that's what's been happening. So if you want to understand what their plan is, look around you and see what has actually been happening. They've been destroying Greece and Spain and causing people to dig in garbage cans for food. And some families have had to give up their babies because they can't afford to take care of them. And we ask ourselves, well, Greece and Spain, especially Greece, let's focus on Greece for a minute. Greece is not a country that doesn't have things that the technocrats want. Greece has a lot of gold in its country to be mined. In fact, a Canadian company has been given authorization to go into Greece in 2013 and start mining for the technocrats. They have huge deposits of gas and oil. These are commodities that the technocrats use currently and would probably want to keep using in the future in order to ensure that they make their money. So in the restructuring process, if you look at it through the eyes of a corporation, the restructuring process, they haven't fired their employees. If you think of the citizens as employees, they're just lowering their wages. They're putting in austerity. They're buying themselves time in order to get everything restructured. Because like I said when I first opened this broadcast, the fiat system has failed. And in history, fiat systems always fail. So now we have a problem because the US dollar is the global reserve currency. And for the folks who don't know, the global reserve currency is the currency by which all other fiat are judged on the global market. So the worth of a ruble or the euro is based on the U.S. dollar. But since the U.S. dollar is crashing, all of the other money, all the other fiat, is becoming even worth less and less. They were worth less than the dollar to begin with, and now they're worth even less. So I want to explain to everyone why we're going through this. I think it's important to understand the markets. And with the gold and silver market, I'm going to ask David to explain who controls the gold market globally.
Well, the gold market globally is really, it's traded on the futures index. And beyond just the large powerhouse investors like JP Morgan and Goldman Sachs, there are the actual holders of that gold. And those tend to be the banks, the Federal Reserve, which Federal Reserve has come out to say that they don't actually own gold, and they've given it to other countries in trade, like Saudi Arabia, Israel, places like that. But the gold market is largely run off of the stock market. And what's interesting to me is that when you talk about this Bitcoin thing, Bitcoin is something that can be used to trade on open markets and the stock market. And it's not based in any actual, there's no gold backing, there's nothing behind it. It's just in the wind.
Well, it's interesting, and I mentioned this on earlier broadcasts, but Bitcoin has been given new status, and it's important for you guys to understand what Bitcoin is. And I got a lot of emails and a lot of readers talking about why are you attacking Bitcoin? Bitcoin is digital currency that has no basis in reality. And for example's sake, Bitcoin has now been given banking status. They have been given the ability through other banks in France, central banks in France, the ability to be reclassified so that they can offer, they have an international bank ID number. You can now do PayPal transactions and WorldPay transactions. You can have a debit card. And so this is now digital currency that has no basis in reality. There's no precious metals backing it up, and there's no fiat representation in the real world. It is simply a bunch of numbers on a computer screen. And for anyone who has a computer, and I mean this in the literal sense, everyone could eventually and has had in the past and will in the future have viruses downloaded to your computer. It may not even be malicious. It just may be you click on a website, it happens to have a Trojan, it gets into your computer. But when all of your currency is based on a screen and a hard drive and a server, and those things can be corrupted, then when that goes bad, you have nothing. And that is a position that the central bankers are moving toward. And we talk about the RFID chip, and we talk about digital currency, but I want everyone who's hearing my voice to understand how close we really are to, we are at the precipice. The fiscal cliff is about looking down into that valley and staring at our new currency, which is credit-based and digital. Why? Why would that be? Because, folks, the central bankers, the technocrats, are broke. They don't have enough fiat printed in order to cover their bets and their debts. And they are transitioning us from this system that we have right now to a digital system that they don't have to worry about euros anymore and about all the other fiat out there. And I'll give you an example of how transitions are made. In the 1990s, debit cards were introduced. Before that, you wrote a check. And before that, you actually paid in cash. So when checks came out, it was convenient. You could write a check, you didn't have to have cash on you, and you write the check out and hand it to the clerk, and they take it, and you go. And then debit cards came out. And all of a sudden, people who were still writing checks became an annoyance at the counter. Get that check written. Oh my God, I got places to go. Just swipe your damn card. Because when you have a card in front of you, you're not counting the cash. You're not keeping score. You're not keeping count of what's going on. And, we talk about, all the fees that are racked up when you don't balance your checkbook and all of this other gobbledygook. But the point is that it's cool and it's fun and it's neat to swipe a card instead of having to actually engage and paying cash or write a check. And now all you have to do is put your finger onto a little biometric scanner and it knows you. And you don't even have to whip out that card. And it's new, and it's trendy, and the commercials make it look great. Hey, when I see one of those commercials, I still think it's cool. I'm like, yeah, that looks cool. But the ramifications of it is that money no longer exists. Money doesn't matter. It's a digital credit-based system. And I don't have a lot of time in this segment. It's ending, but when we get back, I'm going to explain to you what digital credit-based system means and how not having fiat is bad. It's a representation of something, and they printed so much of it that it's not backed by any precious metals. Absolutely, that's terrible. But to turn any physical representation into something that is worthless and teach us, re-educate us into the idea that digital currency is cool because computers are the wave of the future and we need to ride that wave, is detrimental. And it's only serving the purpose of the technocrats. And the reason why we're going through all of this heartache and all of this suspense and all of this fear over the fiscal cliff is because they need to transition us a hell of a lot faster than they realize. They thought they had time. But they don't. They need to do it now because there's a couple of other countries who are pushing them, and we'll talk about those countries in the segment coming up. So don't go away, guys. I want you to please stay seated and listen to this. You don't want to miss this episode.
Hi, this is David Posel. This week we're going to be featuring a musician called Mr. E, and he can be found at reverbnation.com/MIZTIRE. So Mr. E has this song that we're going to play today. It's called The Matrix. And you can go ahead and go to his website, reverbnation.com/MITZIRE, and download this as well as some of his other tracks. He has a new video out. Mr. E is a great guy. He's very outspoken. He really gets it, and he uses his music as an outlet for that knowledge and that passion, and I think you guys will really like his music. So here we go.
I said that I did it out of control, roaming alone, 30-year-old solo living. 10 years later down the road, and homie, I hope all is forgiven since I'm low and drove on the low and staying out of prison. Let the pit pull off the leash and watch them sick. I'm like convicted on the truth, and I'm in the chest so hard it's like a tiger shark just gonna teach you a lesson if you listen. Everything on your list I did on my got homies rolling bloods just to see how big they get them. Dropping verse, rehearse it till it's perfect, fitted on the stage. Music is the only legal way I can release my rage. Turn the page another day. No one knows what tomorrow brings. Can't you see the mainstream media pulling at your puppet strings? You need to free your mind, unplug yourself from the matrix. You taking what they feeding you and you chewing it till it's tasteless. They dumping all into the gulf and telling us to be wasteless. They buying you the bullshit, that's why your enemy remains faceless.
Look at them go, energy low, mentally never be ready to roll. Pity the fool, living the view, sit in the pew, you never see blue. Ready to move, steady and smooth, pedal the metal, what's out of the lose. Sticking it 21 in the booth, gotta be true, you sticking the truth. Look at them go, energy low, mentally never be ready to roll. Pity the fool, living the few, sit in the pew, you never see blue. Ready to move, steady and smooth, pedal the metal, what's out of the lose. Sticking it to anyone in the booth, gotta be true. I can remember every person watching, waiting, aiming, debating about if I've been losing pages through my stages. I'm pacing every day, been writing up a few more pages. So many letters, numbers, feel like I'm stuck in the matrix. Somebody tell me where to travel next, who the cadence. Will you keep hating from the shade and get illuminated? Eliminated from my path, make you devastated. I'll hit you harder than your mama and your medication. But tell me if this is the picture fitting in the frame. Behind the rhythm, lyricism is a simple thing. They call me Seven on the stage, but it's still a name. My darker side, man, and pace it to a better way. I woke up to that 21 in the month of May. But when I opened up my eyes, it was all the same. When there's darkness in the atmosphere, let it rain. Cause I'm so shining in my mind, it's never gonna change.
Look at them go, energy low, mentally never be ready to roll. Pity the fool, live in the view, sit in the pew, you never see blue. Ready to move, steady and smooth, pedal the metal, one side of the lose. Sticking it to anyone in the booth, gotta be true, you sticking the truth. Look at them go, energy low, mentally never be ready to roll. Pity the fool, live in the view, sit in the pew, you never see blue. Ready to move, steady and smooth, pedal the metal, one side of the lose. Sticking it to anyone in the booth, gotta be true, you sticking the truth.
Wadia will remain a dictatorship. Oh, be quiet. Why are you guys so anti-dictators? Imagine if America was a dictatorship. You could let 1% of the people have all the nation's wealth. You could help your rich friends get richer by cutting their taxes and bailing them out when they gamble and lose. You could ignore the needs of the poor for healthcare and education. Your media would appear free, but would secretly be controlled by one person and his family. You could wiretap phones. You could torture foreign prisoners. You could have rigged elections. You could lie about why you go to war. You could fill your prisons with one particular racial group, and no one would complain. You could use the media to scare the people into supporting policies that are against their interests.
Fight the last freedom of imagination, or drowning pop culture of the biggest nation with armies of idiots brandishing brand names of one corporation, or conflagration, the most holy train wreck of all human history. Tell me how you feel.
Hello, everybody, and thanks for coming back with us. I have a caller. I know David had a comment to make that he wanted to make before the break, but I have a caller on the line, so I'm going to go ahead and take that call. Hello, Ashley. Can you hear me?
Hey, Suzanne.
Hello. How are you?
Doing well. Yourself?
I'm awesome. What did you want to talk about?
Well, I was just going to interject a little bit. I've been following the whole cashless society since about like 1998, I would say. I started waking up to this. And it seems to me, I mean, let me ask your opinion if you agree, that this is all by design. They have to destroy the old system so they can put in a new system, which will be an electronic system, probably with a microchip injected into you. That's where I believe the evolution is going. And they've just been preparing everybody with commercials on TV, making it look really fun and trendy. We must get the chip and stuff. It's going to be so easy to thank and, you know, identify ourselves, and it's going to be all great and stuff.
Absolutely. I totally agree with you. I've heard that DHS wants to have an RFID chip, a bracelet that you can wear before you get on the airplane, so they can just scan you, and then they know, the TSA knows that it's you. So that might be something else. They might put it in jewelry. You know, there's a lot of talk. There's a lot of aversion to having it injected into your body at this point in time. But putting it in a piece of jewelry, you know, putting it in a bracelet or a necklace, that makes sense to me, because De Beers could just hide it. It could be in your wedding engagement ring or something.
Yeah, you would never even know.
Exactly. Well, it's all in our IDs. Most RFID chips are in your state ID right now. And all they have to do is turn on GPS, and they know exactly where you are.
Thank gosh, I live in Rhode Island. That hasn't happened here yet. If that happens, I drive without it.
Good. Everyone moved to Rhode Island.
There's not enough room in the state, unfortunately. But I've definitely seen the ads that you're talking about. They make it look like you're in the Matrix, you know, like Neo going through the grocery store and just putting your hand out and it scans you. And they also have a UPS ad where all the packages know where they're at, and they can locate them by satellite no matter what. It's absolutely ridiculous.
I believe it's an IBM ad or something. It came out years ago, actually.
Yeah.
Well, that makes sense. You know, with vaccines, you know, Melinda Gates is an IBM baby. Mm-hmm. So she's just continuing the family business, I guess, hooking up with Bill Gates.
Yeah. And they do have nanochips. They do have nanochips now that they can inject into your blood, and they're going to be using those very soon for people in you know, that are incarcerated and things like that. But there's no saying that they're not going to put that into your body along with a vaccine. There's absolutely no way we would know.
Is there anything else?
Oh, I thought you hung up on me.
No, I would never hang up on you.
Well, I don't know. I'm sorry. It sounded like it. It's okay. But no, I just wanted to chime in with my opinion and just let everyone know. I already drew the line in the sand where as soon as the RFID chip goes in, any form of identification, that's when I no longer carry it. I'm drawing the line before they even have the intense injection into my body. And that's what we all need to do. Tell them no. Just remember the little word is no, N-O. No, I will turn my guns in. No, I will not take the chip. Very simple.
Right, exactly. Don't comply. We have a choice. We can go along with it, or we can say, no, I'm not going to do this.
Exactly. And you have a great show, and I'm sure you will, and you always do, and you'll be getting a lot of listeners. Keep on keeping on. Love
Thank you. Thank you so much, Ashley. Have a great night.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. So, David, what was your comment that you wanted to make before we went on the break?
Well, I was looking at that, and you know, when you were talking about how the Bitcoin and these digital currencies are really just, you know, numbers on a screen and things like that, and sometimes you get a virus in your computer, and it's not always malicious. You know, I thought about that, and realistically, it's the same thing with our bankers. You know, the people that actually are controlling these digital currencies, it's no different. I mean, you have to trust that these people have your interest in mind, and they're not going to just shut you off because, you know, they want to, or because somebody from DHS or the FBI said, hey, you know what, I want you to push this guy's button. You know, what could you imagine what would happen if the trolls actually got behind all of this, you know, all of these things that, such as, you know, turning off your numbers. Let's say that they go hack Visa, and now all of a sudden all of your money's gone, not just your card.
Well, that's what we're seeing. We're seeing a lot of the banking viruses coming out, and all the banks are complaining that they're going to get hacked. And in the future, we're going to have, in 2013, they're talking about Russian hackers, cyber hackers, that are going to come and hack into 300 different banks and steal $5 million. Now, to you and I, $5 million sounds like a lot of money, but to Citigroup or Bank of America, that's nothing. So they're creating this scenario where they don't have to worry about shutting you off. They're going to shut it off and use a false flag banking virus in order to blame it on somebody else so they don't take the hit. And meanwhile, all of the banking institutions have decided to join forces because of these false flag cyber attacks, along with the federal government, so that technological vulnerabilities are identified and eliminated, with Morgan Stanley and Goldman Sachs discussing how to converge on a shared data center where secret banking information can be kept under wraps so that hackers can't steal information, as well as sound an alarm when other banks are under attack. So this new secret network will be accessed only to the technocrats. It will be privatized, and customer banking information in the name of security will be allowed only to the banksters. And we won't have any access to it. This is your information. This is your bank account. Now, I've said this before, and I think it's very important to keep saying it. On August 9th, when Sentinel Management Group went under and that ruling went down, they made it law. They made it legal when you deposit your money into that bank account, it becomes property of the bank. It is no longer yours. So if you want to make sure that you have your money, go cash your check and take that cash home. Otherwise, when you deposit that money into the bank, it belongs to them. And now they wanted to have a secret network so that only they can access your information. And if there's a cyber attack, who would know who started it? Who would know? We've got our government going overseas with Flame and other viruses and attacking other countries on a regular basis. So, and we know that our government constantly, I mean, I don't want to talk about Sandy Hook, but we have had how many false flags involving gun-related violence this year?
Mm-hmm.
So what would it take for them to cause a false flag in our banking system? Not much.
They already have. I mean, they've already hit Wells Fargo and a couple of other banks in 2012 alone. And, you know, if you think about this, it's a situation where they could say, oops, and I need a bailout.
Right.
And that's it. But, you know, when they get bailed out, the people don't get paid back. They
right.
get paid. They take home billions in advance money, and they go to Hawaii for a vacation with Obama. But, you know, it's ultimately the people that suffer.
And that's always how it is. And so we're seeing this transition. We're seeing the implosion of fiat all across the world. And the central bankers have been complaining that when they buy bonds of countries, it is not really a favorable commodity for them. They want to deal in gold. And so Deutsche Bank analysts have said that gold is not really a commodity. This is a downplay of precious metals. And the reason why they're downplaying precious metals is because there's a fight going on. And I've written articles about this, and this is an article that I wrote back in October, and it's worth checking out. On OccupyCorporatism.com, the New World Order versus the Old World Order, the battle for world power. It's important for us to understand that the central bankers have a problem with countries that are run under BRICs nations. And who are the BRICs nations? For those who don't know, BRICs nations are nations that have gotten together and decided that they are not going to deal in fiat that is not backed by precious metals. Russia, China, India, Brazil, and South Africa have all gotten together, and we have seen in this year a massive amount of gold being purchased by the Chinese government to back up their fiat. And this has caused a huge problem for the Rothschild central banking countries that are the countries that are run by the Rothschild central bankers, because they just have fiat. They don't have any gold stores. The little bit of gold that they do have, they stole it from China. I've written articles about this. They took the gold from China and they issued them bonds instead. And the bonds are worthless. And so there's battles going on. And every one of these people who run these countries, they're all globalists. Putin is a globalist. Ahmadinejad is a globalist. Obama is a globalist. The president of China is a globalist. But the BRICS nations have a different view of how they want a new world order, where the technocrats want complete control over all of us. They want depopulation. They want a sizable amount of us to be debt slaves in order to keep the system going so that they can go live high on the hog, maybe live on one of these blue seed cities out in the ocean with Peter Thiel. Agenda 21, where there's areas in the continental United States and in other countries where it's cordoned off, and you and I are not allowed to go there. We have to live in these megacities where we live on top of each other, and we're lucky for what we have. And this is transitioning me into the credit-based system that I was telling you about. A credit-based system is how much you work, how much you put into the system to justify your worth. So if you put in, like Rockefeller said, I think back in the 70s, if you put in 12 hours into the system, then you can take 12 hours of something back out. So right now, the technocrats, the central banking cartels who own their countries, are reassessing the worth and value of their countries. And how do we know what a country is worth? By their asset. And what assets does the United States have and the other central banking controlled countries? Their people. That's why austerity is it's a Band-Aid to an amputation. They don't want us on their system for very long. And I see that we have a caller, so I'm going to go ahead and take this call. And in the 443 area code, you are live on the Region 10 report. Hello, who am I speaking to?
Hi, how you doing? My name's Nemo from Baltimore.
Hello, Nemo. How are you?
I'm okay. I was just listening to the show about a lot of information I am aware of. And I back you up. I know a lot about the banking system.
Very good. What caught your attention to make you want to call?
Honestly, I was listening to a YouTube, Pete Santilli, and just wanted to check out if you had a live show on, and I called up the live show, and you're here, so it's even better.
Thank you. Yeah, Pete Santilli is a good friend of mine, and his show is awesome.
I've heard you before. You're on his show, right?
Yes. Yeah, I do the Bunker News Break, and I ended up giving part of his show.
Yeah, it's an honor to hear from you, and
I
did hear the fact though that China did as the BRICs nation. I remember hearing about that in high school.
Oh, like you did? That's wonderful.
BRICs nations, yeah. But I do remember hearing about China. I've heard this recently how they had all that gold stolen. And, that, if you know that, so you know a lot, you know?
Thank you.
Yeah, so, cause I read articles about it, you know, what is it, the Golden Lily it's called. And, basically, I wanted, what did catch my attention was how you said the BRICS nations, you said China was buying a lot of gold and that, pissed off the Rothschilds and them, right?
Oh, Nemo, I'm coming up on a break. Thank you very much. Why don't you stay on the line, and we'll talk to you on the other side of the break. Can you hang on?
Yeah, thanks. Yeah.
All right, hold on. Guys, we will be right back on the Region 10 report. Don't go away.
Fight the last freedom of imagination, or drowning pop culture of the biggest nation with armies of idiots.
All right, folks, thank you for coming back with us. I was speaking with Nemo. And Nemo, are you still there?
Yeah, thanks for letting me hang on.
Oh, no problem. I was thinking during the break, there's a lot of disinformation about the subjects that I'm talking about, especially with the BRICS nations and the Chinese gold. And I wanted to refer you, my website is occupycorporatism.com. And if you put in the search bar up at the top on the right-hand side, BRICS nations, you'll find a lot of articles, including source documents from meetings that they've had earlier this year in New Delhi, where you can read their credo and what they want and their version of the new world order that they want to bring in. And I'd like you to just use a lot of discernment when you're searching about this through the internet, because like I said, there's a lot of disinformation about this and a lot of rabbit holes that you don't even have to waste your time going down.
Yeah, I remember though BRICs Nation, just hearing about it. I don't know that much about them. When they were created in the 90s, and my history teachers were explaining it to us.
Mm-hmm.
So I remember hearing about them. Other than that, I don't really know that much. I do know about the New World Order with, I want to say, the UN.
Right.
But it sounded like you were explaining that BRICs nations are a little bit separate from them. They're not the same.
Well, I want to go over this, and so I'm going to let you go, but go to my website, occupycorporatism.com, and like I said, put in BRICs into the search engine on my website, and you'll see a lot of articles, a lot of source links. I'm very thorough in my source links. And so you will get a lot more information that way, and that'll take you down a road that is more informational and less sensational.
Hey, if you don't mind me asking, though, about the Federal Reserve, I did hear it got audited. Is there any updates or anything on that? Did you already cover that?
One of the branches was audited, and they found some major discrepancies in money missing. But to be honest with you, the people who run our country, which is the Federal Reserve, is not going to allow themselves to be audited in any actual, real way. This is all smoke and mirrors. This is a distraction to give you something to satiate you. It's like having an appetizer before your meal so you're not starving.
Oh, sounds funny.
Well, yeah, and I think in the later part of last year, there was an announcement that they were talking on C-SPAN with the president of the Federal Reserve, and they asked him about gold reserves. And he says, we haven't been in the gold industry since 1934. So they're, in one way, actually admitting that they don't hold physical gold.
And this is part of the problem, and this is what I'm talking about tonight. Nemo, thank you so much for calling in. Please feel free to call back anytime.
Okay, dear. Thank you. Have a good night.
You too. Thank you very much. So, folks, let's get back to these the BRICs nations and see what the problem that we have is. The people who own us have decided that on one half they want this overreaching Orwellian state. These are the Rothschild technocrats. On the other hand, you have the BRICs nations who want a gold standard brought back. They want to replace the U.S. dollar with gold and have all the fiat in the world. They don't care whether or not you have the U.S. dollar or the yuan or the ruble. They just want to make sure that every bit of fiat that's printed is backed in precious metal. And so the technocrats are freaking out, and they need to bring this to a head. All of these problems that they've caused with all of these debacles with the crash in 2008, they need to bring this in, and they need to rein this in and bring us to the digital credit-based system that I've been talking about. As far as in our country, what happened in Greece and Spain is not going to fly, because 1 out of 3 homeowners is a registered gun owner. And I talked in my last broadcast about how they're trying to take our guns. And that ties directly into this topic that I'm talking about right now. Because Bernanke, with everything that's gone on with the banks and the crash and the mortgage-backed securities, Bernanke is QE3 and now introducing QE4. This is a massive land grab, because the technocrats they're scrambling to turn this fiat that they have produced into hard assets. They need to transfer it to hard assets so that they have allocated actual real things of wealth. And the wealth is in the land and the people. So you and I are worth something to the technocrats, because we contribute to the commerce, to the buying of goods and sales, and we work and then we buy, and then we work and then we buy. And this keeps them going, and this keeps them getting richer and richer. And so they want to keep that scheme going. Bernanke is buying up land at a massive amount, $85 billion a month. And I've talked about this before, but it needs to be explained again, because the technocrats are transferring, like I said, all of this fiat. The US dollar is worth almost nothing now, literally. And so they need to make this into something that they can actually turn into something that's worth something. So they're buying our country. With the 2008 crash, when China realized that they had gotten screwed over by the technocrats, they said, okay, fine, we'll just go ahead and send representatives over to America and take back the land. So Hank Paulson ran into the Congress and said, oh my God, you need to sign this bill. We need $700 billion. Otherwise there's going to be martial law. And he wasn't kidding, because the Chinese were ready to send over representatives to this country and take back the land, because it said in their contract that if the technocrats did not hand over the money, then they were able to seize the property. They had in their possession a contract that gave them the ability to have the deed to the properties. So to make this matter a little bit more an easier pill to swallow, they handed them over $700 billion. And it wasn't just China. It was a lot of other countries. But China has been given, through the U.S. Treasury, a status that is unforeseen. It's unimaginable. When the U.S. Treasury auctions off bonds, the U.S. Treasury has given China a backdoor into the computer system and given them the Obama administration has been helping China buy up all of these foreclosed homes. This is trade for the problem that the technocrats caused. So we've got two factions of the New World Order negotiating with each other. And it's kind of like a marriage falling apart. And they don't want to work together. One wants to bring in, the BRICs want a New World Order where there's a gold-based standard for global currencies, that we bring back technologies, that we get rid of the control over Standard Oil and all of the Rothschild arms that are controlling all of the technologies that we have. And that sounds great. It sounds great to me. But it's still New World Order. It's still control. And on the other side, we've got this crazy, scary RFID chip in your arm Orwellian police state that the Rothschilds want, including depopulation, including eugenics, including, I saw an article today on Adam Lanza where they sent his DNA to a university to check and see whether or not he had some gene or some mutation that would have caused his violent outburst. So they're going to not only create designer people in petri dishes, but they're going to eradicate anything that they don't like, because it might become violent, or it might become oppositional, or it might become a problem for them later on. Ladies and gentlemen, I only have a few minutes, and I didn't get to everything that I wanted to talk to you about. But right now is the time that we really, please, after you listen to this broadcast, please sit down and think about this tonight. We can stop complying with the system as soon as we want to. We can stop trading this piece of paper that we've been given and told that it's worth something. We can start organizing our communities and getting to know each other and supporting each other. We can stop feeding into the gold markets by buying things that are worth something, like non-GMO seeds and tools, so you can become a productive member of your community and band together and stop this train. But we all need to do this. So that's what I really want you to take away from this. I'm not trying to tell you that this is all doom and gloom. I'm trying to educate you so that you understand what this fiscal cliff means. They're trying to scare you into thinking that the only way that they're going to come through this eventually is a digital credit-based system. And that is not the answer. That is another ultimate control that is going to lead us to everything that we fear. But if we stop playing the game with them, and we can do this tomorrow morning when we wake up, then they don't have any more power over us. Thank you so much for listening. I will see you next Friday at 11 p.m. Central for the Region 10 report. Have a good night.